Fireball!
What are you doing?
Fireball!
Fugen, that's not...
Furball!
Ew, what the hell, Fugen? No!
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, welcome one and all to a revelation, all from a few pages of concept art from far before the release of the first Monster Hunter game, the first game in the entire series, over 15 years ago. In fact, this concept art was so early, it was when Monster Hunter was set in a whole other thematic universe, one that was much darker and much heavier fantasy, one that more than likely would have had magic. And I'm not talking about Rathalos shooting a fireball at you during a hunt, I mean a goddamn hunter wielding a staff casting spells. And this is just one part of it. There were also two more weapons in this concept art. First off though, back to the magic one, imagine how this could have completely changed the way that the series feels. Many of the purposes that bowguns have gained over the years would likely have instead gone to the magic weapon type in order to split up ranged combat styles at least a little bit. And more than anything, the feeling of the whole series would have shifted in general. As it currently stands, Monster Hunter is about hunters who, while strong, are still humans, who train extremely hard and work very hard at their job to become strong enough to stand toe-to-toe with nature's most evolved beasties. What if you were firing an ice beam at them? This is the big thing about Monster Hunter to me. It knows exactly how to tread the line between somewhat realistic and proper fantasy, and for the most part, the answer is the monsters can do whatever you want them to, as long as you build the lore around it to at least somewhat reasonably explain it. But hunters should be limited to what humans are able to do in the real world, at least somewhat. Sure, exaggerated expectations of what humans can do, but still things that humans could do. I just can't imagine a full-on wizard standing in a corner casting a rain of meteors down from above or something like that. It really doesn't make sense to me in my small brain vision of Monster Hunter. This isn't Dragon's Dogma, though I could totally believe it if some of the very early conceptual stuff for Monster Hunter ended up turning into Dragon's Dogma, considering it is also a Capcom IP. Adding magic to the Monster Hunter universe would be like advancing technology thousands of years in the universe, and the monsters would need to be buffed to compensate. After all, even the Greatsword doesn't really look unreasonable fighting most early tier monsters. A full-on beam battle with a Great Jagras, however, might be a little bit underwhelming. My main concept for how this would probably translate to modern Monster Hunter, if it did ever happen to return, would be to actually let hunters use basically monster attacks. Not necessarily literally, but imitating certain animations to create similar effects. Like the hunter doing a backflip with the staff against their back like a Rathian dealing poison damage, or the ability to coat your weapon in ice, creating a proper blade at the tip like Gossarag. I can see them implementing a much more practical concept of a hunter who tries to learn from monsters exactly how to hunt the monsters. Past this weapon, there was also a design proposed at the time for a weapon that was a whip and fan dual wielding combo. It seems from the single page of concept art that we have here that the whip was intended more for use as a secondary component, being used to deal damage at a range and keep the monster at bay, and maybe even parry attacks by redirecting the force, while the fan was more the actual melee weapon component involved. This weapon I could almost see translating to modern Monster Hunter. I would argue that it is maybe a little bit too involved, there's a little bit too much going on. A whip and a fan are both individually quite unique items, so putting them together into one weapon class gives it a lot to stand out with in a game that has a weapon class called Sword and Shield, which is literally just a sword and shield.
You have a point there.
Then the third one in this collection, we have this absolutely massive hammer along with a towering shield designed like a scarab. And at first you might just think that is the design motif of the armor. It is very Egyptian themed in the concept art, but while you would be correct to get that, I propose to you that potentially that's sort of the design of the weapon concept as a whole, and that potentially this shield was also supposed to double up as a pet companion based on the other drawings that are on the page, including one where you are controlling some part of your outfit to have some sort of effect on the insect companion. In some ways, this weapon could be argued as an early prototype of Insect Glaive, at least the base concept of a controllable insect companion as a side function to a melee weapon. Personally, I actually really do like this. I would love to walk around with a giant mace and a shield and then throw the shield out to reveal that it's like a large dog-sized beetle running around to attack the monster. A battle beetle. Sure, it is a bit high-tech for Monster Hunter's normal affairs, but it sounds fun as hell, and we could definitely make it work with a living creature, no matter how sad it would be to use them as a shield. You know what, now that I say that out loud, I can see why this weapon maybe wasn't completed. All in all, these 3 pages of concept art are just more examples of how ludicrously high fantasy the Monster Hunter universe could have become, how much different every game in the series could have wound up, and how unbelievable it is that the Monster Hunter series is what it is today, the series that we have today. Magic would have been cool, sure. I mean, magic is generally one of the coolest ways to fight in all of fiction, but would it have fit the Monster Hunter that we have today? I mean, would it really? It's hard to say. To me personally, I think it would have definitely removed a lot of the groundedness that the series has now, and I think that is a lot of the draw to make it quite as immersive as it now is. But saying that, who knows? Maybe if I finished Monster Hunter World by having a beam struggle with a Xeno'jiva, I'd have a different opinion on the whole matter. I think this really is sort of on an individual basis, and mostly that basis is whether or not that individual in question would want to use the magic weapon themselves. Personally, I quite like my sort of half and half concept, using monsters' abilities against them, almost more like monster-based interpretive dance with pyrotechnics. Though that's a bit of a long name for a Monster Hunter weapon, honestly. I'll have to work on shortening that down for the future. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been a discussion about the magic that could have been in the Monster Hunter universe, and the other 2 weapons that were conceptualized alongside it. What are your thoughts on the concept of magic in the Monster Hunter world? Would you have liked any of these weapons to make it into the series based on the tiny amount of information that we have about them? If so, why? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.